Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the YouTube channel, God Would Do It For You. My name is Steven, and I hope everyone's having a great day so far. Sorry I missed you guys last week. Definitely a lot of things came up all of a sudden. I just thought it was best just to kind of reset this week, and that way we can just get back on track and handle business. And what we're going to be talking about today is when we feel forgotten by God. And there's a lot of instances in my life and also even stories in the Bible, and we'll talk about just one today, where people are being obedient to God's instructions. They're going about life, they're praying, they're hoping, they're having faith, they're believing, but it just seems like everybody else around them is getting, their prayers answered, or the things that you love or wanting to do or aspire to do, you see other people now reaping their harvest or now walking into what they feel is their purpose. And you're like, dang, what about me? It's been so long, or you're starting to even feel like a lot of time has went by and you're like, I don't think it's going to happen anymore. Well, this brings us to the book of Luke. And we you start at chapter 1. I'm just going to paraphrase the story of Zechariah and Elizabeth and how they birthed John the Baptist. And basically, Zechariah was a priest, and he was given a particular duty in the church to pray over, to send people's prayers, pray over the prayers and be in communion with God, and their positions were highly esteemed, so it wasn't like he was not known. He was known for blessing people and their children, or praying and, being an intercessor for others. But then in their time period, not having a child was looked down as you aren't being blessed. And Zechariah and Elizabeth really wanted a child. The issue was that Elizabeth was barren and Zechariah was old as well, so they were past the time frame of what they believed that it would even be possible. Where does this sound familiar? The book of Abraham. But now, Zechariah, he's being obedient. He's called, particularly just one instance, to, lead the prayers in the church. And finally, he's praying, he's hoping, he's believing for a baby, because I'm pretty sure he was getting in his feelings a little bit sometimes, happy for others, but like, dang, what about me? What about me? And finally, the angel Gabriel comes down from heaven, and Gabriel gives the word from God, and he answers his prayer. So he comes with the answer, and he lets him know that you are going to birth the child. You're going to call him John, and he's going to be the forerunner of the Messiah. And the first thing that Zechariah says is, how is this? And so instead of bowing down, acknowledging the word, he responds not in belief, but in disbelief. And it just reminds me of the story of Gideon and also Abraham. They all had the same expression when they were given a direct message from God through an angel, which, in my opinion, is very human-like, because God does things in the supernatural. So the natural, our mindset thinking how things go naturally, it was disbelief. So the angel said, it is going to happen, but I'm going to silence you until the promise does come to pass. And so sometimes we have to realize ourselves, how many times can we talk ourselves out of a blessing? Now, the great thing about this is, even though now he's a priest of great word, because people thought that he must have saw a vision or saw something, and now he done lost his voice because God doesn't want him to talk about it. He couldn't tell anybody what he was told. He had to stay silent all the way, even until the childbirth. It wasn't until people asked, what are you going to name the child? Because back in that day, usually the child took on whoever the father's name was. But then when he wrote down on the tablet, John, and showed it to everybody, now all of a sudden his voice came back, and now he started to rejoice with joy and give God glory. Now, why is that? Why is that? Why all of a sudden now, when Zechariah writes the name for the child, when people are asking, what are you going to name the child? Because his wife Elizabeth told him but they looked to the man for that information back in the day. And so when he was in agreement with God's will is when God then allowed him to speak. The great thing about what God did in this whole situation is even though Zechariah responded not in faith, it did not stop God's plan to bring about his will. Sometimes we have to realize that God, when he gives us a dream, a vision, or a promise, is not going to look how we think it's going to look. And based off of the stories in the Bible, anything that he promises, it usually takes some time for it to come to pass. Sometimes it's when people are older than they expect. Sometimes it's when people are younger than when they expect. Think David. He was young when he first got anointed, but then became king possibly in his 30s. Joseph was in prison for 13 years when he was a teenager. He was sold into slavery. And so again, in his 30s, he was possibly made king. So yes, there are times where people do get things younger. But then you have people like Moses, where he was stranded for 40 years. So he was completing his task when he was in an older age. Whatever the case may be, God does not waste any time. He does not waste any circumstance. And the one thing that we should be doing while we are waiting in faith and while we are acting in faith as well. So if you are believing in something, you want to be making sure that you are acting in faith to whatever it is, to whatever you can in your power. That way, God will do what he needs to do in the background, and faith with works creates the blessing. The one thing we have to realize is that God usually has a particular way of how he chooses to do things in our life, but it does not mean that he has forgotten us. And I had to remind myself this week because, man, I felt forgotten. I felt like, I was like, man, I'm really trying everything. And everybody's like, hey, man, we're so proud of you that you're trying your best with the food thing. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not getting any results like I want. Like, I'm doing all these things. It sounds really great. People are giving me really good praise, but the praise is not coming. It's not, I need some results. That way I can see what's what. What business in the world can thrive off of, hey, you're doing a good job, and hey, you got a good product. Businesses thrive off of revenue. So for me, I was just starting to get down a little again. I'm human. I started to get down a little bit, and I was just like, I don't even know anymore. Like, I'm trying. I don't know if I'm burning money. I was like, I don't know God. So of course, the first thing I like to do is go to prayer and just pray and just say, God, please don't make me look like a fool. Because that's what it all comes down to for me. Is like, hey, I'm not getting any roadblocks. I'm not getting any stops. I'm not getting anything that's telling me, hey, you're not on the right track. But I'm not getting any results. And that's why I love to look at Tyler Perry's situation, because Tyler Perry was not getting any results for 7 years. And I'm not getting any results from my music, but it's getting a lot better. And so I'm just like, God, I just hope that I'm on the right track, because I cannot go back in time to recorrect any decisions that I'm making. I've put it out there to the world what I'm doing. So I hold myself accountable. I don't care about how I look if I fail, but what I care about is how I look if I'm putting forth 110% and then it just get nothing out of it. Nothing. It would literally discourage me a little bit. It'll discourage me a little bit. So make sure that anything that you're hoping and wishing for, anything that you're hoping or you feel like God is giving you a vision for, whatever the case may be, just keep moving forward in life. Keep doing what you need to do. Keep acting in faith. And at that point, let God, at his time, letting you know when he answers that prayer, at that point, it's up to you how you choose to respond. There's plenty of instances in the Bible where God has answered people's prayers and they chose to respond a particular way and it messed things up for them. Plenty of times. Plenty of times. Let that not be us. Stay encouraged, stay blessed, keep your head up, and just know that God has not forgotten about you. Understand that we're all going through it. If we're all hoping to get to a point in our life where certain concerns, we wish that they would be a thing of the past because we've grown for them and now we're ready to take on more, then show God by being consistent, being relentless in your prayer, and being obedient to his instruction, and just wait and see what he's going to do. So I hope this video's been a blessing. If you feel led to like, share, subscribe, definitely do so. Otherwise, until next time, we're going to keep it trucking. Y'all have a great day.